Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we're counting down our picks for Philomena Cunk's most hilarious interviews with experts.
I'm afraid that nuclear war and the threat of nuclear destruction remains very much with us.
Right, can we talk about something a bit more cheerful?
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 10. Robert Peston.
What's the most political thing that's ever happened in Britain?
I'm not sure. I think.
Peston is the political editor for ITV News, famous for his journalism and presenting. This made him a prime target for Cunk and her antics.
And didn't she think that she was causing huge unnecessary suffering?
You're not expecting me to answer that, seriously.
Her questions are so bemusing, he spends more time putting his head in his hands than answering them. Peston tries his best to give Cunk intelligent and eloquent answers, yet the questions are as ridiculous as always.
The welfare state helps people from the cradle to the grave. So is it just for people lying down?
It certainly helps people lying down.
A priceless moment is when Cunk's ringtone goes off mid-answer. Some even consider it straight-up bullying.
They can build.
Let's go, girls.
In the end, it's too much for Peston to keep it together, and he has to stifle a laugh. Number 9. Kate Williams. Williams works for the University of Reading and is a renowned historian.
If you had to find a British Pope now, who would you go for?
We couldn't use the Archbishop of Canterbury.
No, you have to have someone else.
Someone from without the church.
Yeah, like Matt Baker of The One Show.
She appeared on radio and TV numerous times, but none matched the hilarity of her interviews with Cunk. She seems to treat Cunk like an equal, giving genuine answers to her questions and even agreeing with her.
In the Middle Ages, did they know it was the Middle Ages, or did they just think, this is now? You know, how did they know that they were halfway through time?
They thought this is now, and they thought they're incredibly advanced. This is the greatest moment that society would reach to.
It's pure hilarity. Major respect to Williams for this. The experts tend to get riled up during interviews.
It was a bit like trick-or-treating then, was it?
It was very like
I
trick-or-treating.
mean, what sort of costumes would they do? Because they were already sort of covered in shit, weren't they, with like...
One time an expert got so enraged they needed to take a break. This displeased Cunk, who was willing to take a punch to the nose for the bit. Number 8. Dr. Shirley J. Thompson.
Did Beethoven have an actual full-sized horse living inside his face? Sorry, I've misphrased that. I mean, was Beethoven good at music?
Thompson is a celebrated composer, conductor, and violinist. She is so celebrated, Thompson even received an OBE. Her interviews are golden, with Cunk comparing everything she can think of with the Beatles. As always, Cunk asks painfully stupid questions, and we have to give props to Thompson for actually answering them.
How do you play an orchestra? Do you blow into it, or is it one of those ones where you rub a stick on the strings?
Turns out these interviews can last between 1 and 2 hours, with most of them being awkward silence. Her questions start semi-normal, but become increasingly unhinged.
The Rolling Stones were huge in the 1960s. Would it be fair to say they were the Beatles of their day?
Creator Charlie Brooker said he can't be present for Cunk's interviews since he would find it too cringe.
Right, but the Beatles were already the Elvis of their day. So there's a spur Beatles.
Number 7. Howard Goodall.
He would then, what's called orchestrate it. So he'd write out all the parts for all the different instruments, and then he'd hand that over to an orchestra, and they would play it.
How do the instruments know what to play, though?
Because it was all written out for them. Their little part was written out for them, and all the little parts joined together.
So the instruments have people attached to them?
They do.
Goodall is another musician, specifically a composer of musicals and TV soundtracks. Works of his you may be familiar with are the themes for Red Dwarf, Blackadder, and QI. He can easily be considered a musical expert, but his knowledge is completely wasted on Cunk.
And don't dilly-dally on the way. That sort of rhythm was very popular.
So why was that considered entertaining?
Goodall even has a fiddle on a keyboard, but Cunk is far from impressed. Our highlight is when Cunk discusses the effects of psychedelics and proceeds to go on a tangent about her mate Paul.
My mate Paul met this Italian couple whilst he was backpacking, and they invited him back to their room for a threesome, and they gave him some LSD, and when they got there, the bloke one pulled a screwdriver on him and made him shit in his own shoe and eat it.
Paul leads quite a colourful life and is one of Cunk's best running jokes, alongside Belgian Eurodance anthem Pump Up the Jam. Number 6. Professor Jim Al-Khalili.
Galileo's full name was Galileo Figaro Magnifico, wasn't it?
I'm not sure that's right. I don't know.
That's what it says in Dominican Rhapsody.
Are you thinking of Bohemian Rhapsody?
Jim Al-Khalili is a theoretical physicist known for popularising science among the public. His specialties include quantum physics and quantum biology, making him a prime target for Cunk's mischief.
Paul tried to create a new life form by inserting his DNA into a grapefruit, but halfway through the experiment, the greengrocer started hitting him.
He's been interviewed twice, most recently on Cunk on Life. This included probably the funniest Paul story Cunk's ever told. The two first met for Cunk on Earth in 2022, where he had immense difficulty answering questions.
The Wright brothers did the first proper flight over 100 years ago. How come we're still not any closer to working out how aeroplanes actually work?
But we are. We know how they work today.
He looks a bit fed up, but it turns out he had great fun and thought Diane Morgan was lovely. He was even a fan years before they met, implying some acting on his part.
Can you explain how they work without resorting to science?
Number 5. Dr. Ruth Adams.
Was there a miniskirt for men? You know, like trousers that just stopped under the balls?
No. There wasn't a miniskirt for men.
That seems like a shame.
For whom?
For men, so they didn't feel left out.
Adams lectures at King's College London, specialising in cultural studies and humanities. She's appeared on Cunk 3 times so far. Her first time in Cunk on Earth gave us TV gold. An Elvis discussion sends Adams into a laughing fit.
People were prudish back then, weren't they? If they saw his penis, they'd probably have a stroke, wouldn't they?
Probably. I don't think that would have made it onto the media. Oh, God.
That's not a joke. What's funny?
Stunningly, Cunk doesn't break character and looks genuinely offended by her behaviour. It's not just Adams, you can hear the film crew chuckle too. It's extraordinary how rarely she breaks character, but she stated she's about 99% Philomena Cunk, so maybe it's not a character at all. But it's hard to believe someone is as earnestly foolish as she.
You know when people talk about opening the third eye? That's what my mate Paul calls the hole in the end of his penis.
Number 4. Professor Greg Dart.
Who was the man from Nantucket that Byron wrote about in his poem?
I don't remember that poem.
It's the one that goes, there was a young man from Nantucket.
Is that Byron?
Dart is an English lecturer at UCL. He teaches a wide range of topics, specialising in romantics and Victorians. Out of all of her interviewees, he's the one who looks most broken by her questions. He tries his very best to give her good answers, but they just don't exist.
Nietzsche can off.
Sometimes he opts to nod along with whatever nonsense she's spewing, which is probably the path of least resistance. Most experts valiantly attempt to correct Cunk's misguided questions, but Greg doesn't seem to have it in him.
It's all right if you've not heard of him, it's fine. You shouldn't be embarrassed. I hadn't heard of him either.
Yeah, no.
His reactions range from polite nods to puzzled expressions, making you wonder if he's genuinely considering her questions or just silently wondering why he agreed to be there.
Wordsworth wrote, I wandered lonely as a cloud, but clouds don't have legs, do they? No. So how was he allowed to get away with that kind of stuff?
Number 3. Professor Anu Ojha.
What happened to Laika? I expect they gave her a bone and a rub on the tummy when she got back.
Well, Laika unfortunately never made it back to Earth because shortly after launching, she overheated and she tragically passed away just a few hours after being launched.
You're joking.
Ojha works for the UK Space Agency, making him a space exploration expert, the perfect candidate for Cunk's shenanigans. His patience is remarkable, particularly when Cunk starts rambling about her mate Paul's Apollo conspiracy theories.
I don't know if you've done your own research, but my mate Paul sent me a video that exposes the whole thing. Can you prove the moon exists? You can't, can you?
As always, Cunk is completely confident about her gibberish beliefs, enhanced by her deadpan delivery.
You probably believe in nighttime too, don't you?
I experience it, as do billions of people.
Ojha's professionalism makes for a hilarious juxtaposition. The highlight is when the pair share a moment of silence for Laika, since Cunk's convinced her body is still up in space.
There's a dead dog in space.
It's a gem, showcasing Cunk's remarkable ability to turn expert interviews into pure comedy. Number 2, Douglas Headley.
Why do humans need to believe in something bigger than ourselves? Is it so we don't feel quite so fat?
Well,
Headley researches religious philosophy at the University of Cambridge, a rather prestigious role. This job will involve discussing many complex topics with his students and peers, thus he's probably not at all used to the chaotic questions Cunk throws at him, and it shows.
Paul, who's never been religious, spoke to Jesus and said, "I promise if I survive this, I'll believe in you." And he did survive, but he fractured his skull and broke both his legs. Why did Jesus do that?
Despite this, he still manages to maintain his composure while she pokes fun at his life's research. Morgan has said he's a favourite of hers on account of his serious demeanour, her favourite type of expert to interview. She's even admitted to breaking character with him, but this never made it to screens.
So, hang on, if I think therefore I am, what about other people? Do they think therefore they am? How can I tell if they're thinking therefore they am, or am I just thinking they think therefore they am, but actually they're not real?
Number 1, Brian Cox.
So am I right in thinking that this might prove the existence of chakras within the human body?
No. Professor Brian Cox is a particle physicist, currently hired by the University of Manchester. Most people in Britain know him, and his iconic Mancunian accent. Who else could take the top spot, except for the man Cunk's parodying himself?
So as the sun runs out of fuel and expands and incinerates the Earth, a galaxy of 400 billion stars is going to collide with us.
You're much gloomier than I expected, because you're quite smiley.
We thought their rival energies might annihilate one another, colliding like an electron and a positron. Thankfully, this didn't happen, at least not on screen.
How come that when someone's frying bacon and you walk in the kitchen, you can smell it straight away before you've even seen it? Have you ever tried putting bacon in here?
No. The resulting 2 interviews are comedic gold, and arguably the pinnacle of Cunk's character. He does a poor job of containing his frustration, making us wonder how much legwork Cunk did to land the interview.
One way that the world could end is that we're all just sucked off through a hole. I mean, that must be terrible. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be sucked off through a hole?
Yeah.
What Cunk line cracked you up the most? Let us know in the comments.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojoUK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.